still in lockdown land. Right, we are going to start this news roundup, sports news roundup, with the cricket. Okay, so England completed a 2-test victory in Sri Lanka this morning. They won the second test by 6 wickets in the end. Better than the first test. Sri Lanka put up a really good fight, put up a really good score in the first innings, which England actually couldn't get to. Joe Root, once again, was phenomenal. He is proving he is an absolute world-class player against spin, and he also seems to have got over that weird tick of his where he could get to 50 but not 100. He got a double 100 in the first match. He got to the 180s in this match. Had a bit of a sad end, was run out, came a couple of strides forward, the ball went up close and a little bit controversial because it may or may not have broken the bails, or it may have actually hit the stump camera. Either which way, he was run out. He didn't get his double century, but he did play really well, and in the second innings delivered the pretty impressive bowling figures of 2 wickets for 0 runs. So he's going from strength to strength, which is really good. England have obviously had a good warm-up in Sri Lanka, if you can call it that. It's a little bit disrespectful to Sri Lanka to call it that, but nonetheless, they have now played 2 tests on the subcontinent, got used to their latest bio bubble. A little bit of chop and change before they head to India for a 4-test away series. Obviously, some players coming back in, the likes of Stokes, Folkes is coming in as well. He'll be keeping wicket because Buttler's being rested for some of the matches. No one's really being rested for the full 4 matches. They seem to be chopping and changing. Ollie Pope is travelling, but still recovering from a shoulder injury, so he's unlikely to play. We've got Rory Burns coming back in from paternity leave. Remains to be seen, really, which lineup they're going to go for. Probably not their best one for every match, which when you're playing India away from home, not what I would do, but I'm not an England selector. Probably a good thing. So that's what's going on in the cricket featuring England. As for Sri Lanka, not a great side anymore. All their best players have retired. Very few have come through the ranks, except the youngster Mbudenya. He had a fantastic match. Left arm spin, which caused England all sorts of bother. Took 10 wickets in the match. More impressively for me, when they were falling apart in the second innings, being bowled out for just over 100, he actually top scored with 40, which, considering he's young, he's had a lot of pressure on him as the only sort of bowler that's taking wickets and that's really troubling England, bowled a lot of overs as well. So I actually think that's a pretty impressive performance, and that's definitely a name to watch in the future. Right, that's England. They're heading to India. We still don't know who exactly is going to make up the India lineup either. Again, we've got players coming back from injury, players injured, players being rested. Kohli will probably be back. He flew back after the first test in Australia for the birth of his child, so he will more than likely be back in, which is never a good thing if you're trying to play India. England are now definitely confirmed to be playing New Zealand this year in the summer. It's a bit of a shame. We have to give everyone some slack this year because of scheduling, because of COVID, because of matches held over from last year, etc. Should we be playing the world #1 test team in a 2-test series? I talked about 2-test series last time, the fact we just played one in Sri Lanka. No, it's not fair that we're playing New Zealand, the #1 team, Kane Williamson, brilliant captain, brilliant batsman, only 2 tests in England. We're doing it because we've already got 5 tests lined up against India. We're playing them home and away this year. That is brilliant. I've been saying it for a while, as have many other people. It's wrong that only Australia get 5 tests in England, that we should play more 5-test series. And we can be picky and choosy. So, for example, at the moment, India are a very strong team. We should absolutely be playing them across a best-of-5 series. In the past, when South Africa are at the top of the world, absolutely, they should get a 5-test series. Quite frankly, New Zealand should probably get a 5-test series. Probably never going to happen. But we're going to squeeze 2 tests in against New Zealand. We're then playing India 5 times before we head out for the Ashes. That is in the test side of things. Obviously, we've got ODIs, T20s, and the World T20 Cup, World Cup to fit in as well. So, very, very busy year in the old the cricketing front. To give you an idea of how busy England are, if you look at the World Test rankings at the moment, because there is the World Test ranking final as well to be played this year at Lord's, New Zealand are at the top. They've played 27 matches. India in second place have played 32. Australia have played 31. We have played 44. So that should give you a pretty good indication of how busy England have been. Obviously, needs to be said, with the last year, with COVID and bubbles and everything else, we were able to play a full international summer last year when a lot of people couldn't. So that does explain some of the skew in numbers. But also in England, cricket is still popular, Test match cricket is still popular. There's still an appetite to put games on that will, in normal circumstances, get a crowd in, which can't be said for everywhere in the world, sadly. So that's what's going on pretty much in the cricket. There's your sort of very, very, very brief overview. There's a few other things going on. The first test against India is the weekend of the 5th, 6th of February, a couple of weeks' time. That is also the start of the Six Nations. Now, obviously, as a sports fan, amazing that in these really tricky lockdown times we have a load of sport to look forward to. The Six Nations has a question mark for me personally. I think it's going to miss the crowds more than a lot of other sports do. We also don't still know 100% definitely what will happen in France. France politically are pushing for another lockdown because their COVID numbers are rising. We've already had the European Cup matches affected by that, by some new rules being brought in over there. It may well be that maybe they aren't allowed to travel for home matches or away matches. I don't know. It might be that everyone needs such a pick-me-up that elite sport gets a free pass, as it has done in the UK. Remains to be seen, but is a bit of a question mark. England have lost a couple of players from their squad today. Joe Launchbury's got a stress fracture in his leg. He's out of the tournament. Joe Marler has withdrawn for family reasons. I'm not going to speculate on that. Sounds like he just wants to spend more time with them, to be honest. Not the first time he's withdrawn from a squad for family reasons. Wish them both the best. They are both very experienced players, they are both great players, and they will be missed from the squad. It is a squad that's got quite a lot of youth and talent in it though, so that is something to be looked forward to next week when we look towards the tournament and hopefully know for sure that it's all going to happen. That's rugby and cricket covered. Over in the world of Formula One, which isn't kicking off till March, we've got pre-season testing in Bahrain instead of Barcelona. Bahrain is where the season will then start a couple of weeks later, which all makes logistical sense. Still no contract for Lewis Hamilton at Mercedes. The 7-time world champion is said to just be busy. He's apparently in the States. Toto Wolff, team principal, found out today he came down with COVID a few weeks ago but has recovered fully, which is great to hear. So it sounds like just a case of conflicting schedules and people trying to make a mountain out of a molehill, which I would say, had this not been going on for several months, and there's only so long that schedules can continue to conflict. You can't tell me that there's been no opportunity for those two to talk over the last 7, 8, 9 months. They obviously talk quite a lot because they work together quite closely. So yeah, I don't know if there is something going on. Guess we'll just have to wait and see, but it's certainly worth following that story. Even if he does just get a new contract, how long will it be? How long is he planning to stick around? George Russell obviously will be another one watching and following that news story as it continues. So yeah, that's your sort of very, very brief overview of what's going on at the moment. We've still got the players quarantining in Australia, in Melbourne and Adelaide, ahead of the Aussie Open in a couple of weeks. They have piped down. There have been a few more positives, including a player 10 days after she started the quarantine, which kind of does go to show why it needs to be 2 weeks and why it does work. So yeah, they have generally started to toe the line and be a bit more positive. If you want a laugh, check out Heather Watson's Instagram and social media posts. She's done a triathlon in her room. She's done various funny skit type videos, which were all the rage last year in April, which if you want a kind of nostalgic effect of the first lockdown, go and check those out. But at least they do show her personality and that she does have one, which can't be said for all the tennis players. Yeah, so that's kind of what's going on at the moment in sport this week as we head rapidly towards February. Hopefully some milder weather, hopefully lots of better news about COVID, which is still dominating all the sports headlines for obvious reasons. And obviously looking ahead to the rest of the year, we don't know which big sporting events will and won't happen, if anyone will have crowds. We're still waiting for confirmation that the Lions will go ahead in South Africa as opposed to being played in the UK. We're still waiting for confirmation about the Tokyo Olympics. Tennis Grand Slams, golf Grand Slams, they look like they're going to go ahead. They did go ahead last year in what you could argue were worse circumstances, so when there weren't vaccines. So you imagine they're going to go ahead. Cricket seems to be doing really, really well with its bio bubbles, if the players can stay in them long enough and not get bubble fatigue. So yeah, that's what's been going on in the last week of January, and I'll bring you another update next week.